SCP-1337 is called the Hitchhiker. I, for one, would never, ever pick up Hitchhiker unless it was maybe a lady with her baby child or something like that. I'm just too paranoid when it comes to strangers in general, and even SCP nowadays. Guys, we're gonna react to this one. This is by SCP Explained. Make sure to head on over to their channel and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. If you like reaction videos, make sure to subscribe to my channel as well. Let's get into this reaction.
Stop me if you've heard this one before.
Okay.
A young man was driving home from work late one rainy night when he spotted a woman in a white dress and a red sweater walking along the shoulder
like
of the
Little
road.
Red Riding Hood?
Concerned for her safety, he slowed down and rolled down the window so he could talk to her.
Just like
when he
I
asked
said, the
where
woman?
she was going, she said she was
Less
walking to her
intimidating.
parents' house. The man pulled over and offered her a ride that she accepted.
I'll help
the woman
you out.
gave him the address of her home, hopped in the
So you
back
can
seat,
murder me?
and the man drove off. He sensed that she must have been cold from walking in the rain, so he cranked up the car's heater to help her dry off.
What a nice
Soon
fella.
she removed her heavy red sweater and placed it on the seat next to her. The man tried to make friendly conversation, asking if the woman had a job, what she was studying at school, where'd she been that day, but she remained quiet, staring out the window.
Weird.
Until they drove past an old graveyard.
Uh-oh.
The woman began pounding on the glass of the car as if she desperately wanted something.
Okay.
Unsure of what to do, the man pulled over, but before he could ask her what was happening, she had gotten out of the car. He exited the car to try and find her, but the woman was nowhere to be seen.
Weird.
She must have somehow ran off.
Yeah.
Confused, the man got back in his car
confused.
and drove away. He went
Red
on his
sweater
way
still in
and
your
didn't
car,
think of
though.
it again until the next day, when he noticed her sweater was still in the back of
Is
his
that
car.
what's
He decided
gonna
to go to
kill
the
him?
house she had originally given him the address for and give it back to her. He found the home without any trouble, but when he knocked on the door, the old woman who answered it was confused by his story. She told him that her daughter couldn't have possibly left her sweater in his car because she died in a car accident 30 years ago. The Vanishing Hitchhiker is a classic ghost story. With the details varying from place to place and storyteller to storyteller. In Chicago, she goes by Resurrection Mary, named after the graveyard she asks for rides to. In Okinawa, Japan, she's known as the Nightwalker of Nago, and she only appears to taxi drivers. In Kent, England,
is there many instances
she's Suzanne,
of her?
a bride killed in a car wreck on the way to her bachelorette party. In North Carolina, her name is Lydia. And in Hawaii, she's believed to be the goddess Pele in human form.
Really?
But as far as our friends at the SCP Foundation are concerned, the Vanishing Hitchhiker's name is Mary Talish, also known as SCP-1337.
So it's only one.
On the 19th of May, 1952,
people know her as.
college sophomore Mary Talish was abducted on her way to class in her hometown of Muncie, Indiana.
From
when police found her
hitchhiking?
body 2 weeks later, her eyes and heart had been torn from her body in a ritualistic fashion. And she had scrapes and bruises that suggested she had been beaten before her murder. Her killers were never caught, and her body was returned to her family for burial in Tomlinson Cemetery. Starting on the 19th of June that same year, someone matching Mary's description, a Caucasian woman with blonde hair standing 150 centimeters tall and wearing a red sweater, was spotted trying to flag down passing vehicles along Mayflower Road.
She was straight up hitchhiking.
Every month on the 19th, Mary has been sighted along that stretch of road. And every month, the same scenario plays out.
They say
Mary
ghosts
gives anyone who picks her up directions to her parents' house. Then on the way, she instructs the driver to stop at the graveyard where she was buried. She vanishes from the car,
spirits in houses,
leaving her sweater.
walking down the
The
hall,
driver
for
of the car
instance?
tries to return the sweater to her parents' house, only to be told that Mary Talish was dead. When the SCP Foundation was made aware of Mary Talish's pattern of haunting in the late 50s, they set up a system where agents would patrol Mayflower Road at hourly intervals with the intention of picking Mary up.
They gonna catch
Agents
her.
were sent on their
That's
own
what they say, at
in
least,
non-Foundation
to contain her.
cars and instructed to stick to the accepted script of the Vanishing Hitchhiker legend without attempting to engage Mary in further
Does she actually kill
conversation.
anybody, though?
Mary's parents were also given
She didn't
E-Class
kill the original
agent
driver.
status to keep them from speaking about the haunting, and told that the Foundation was working on a way to set the spirit to rest. Early attempts to study the apparition were inconclusive. It proved impossible for the Foundation to relocate her or trigger her manifestation outside of the 19th of every month. And attempts to analyze her sweater were fruitless, since if the sweater wasn't returned to the Talish family home, it would simply vanish from containment at or around sunset on the next 19th. For 20 years, SCP-1337 events continued to happen as normal.
20 years.
D-Class personnel under the instruction of the Foundation would pick Mary up, drive her past the cemetery, and return her sweater to her parents.
Just
it was
like clockwork.
as usual.
Yeah.
And in fact, it was one of the more sedate, reoccurring apparitions the Foundation had to deal with.
Interesting.
But, as you might have guessed, that
peace wouldn't last forever. So
then
what
to
happened?
Dr. Lawson, who in 1972
I thought this thing was violent.
was placed in charge of all resources regarding SCP-1337.
Okay.
Dr. Lawson was getting sick of all this phantom hitchhiker business.
Yeah.
And while most of the Foundation was happy to keep this routine going, Lawson thought that the continual picking up and dropping off of Mary Talish and her red sweater was a waste of the Foundation's valuable time.
That's why you're wrong.
After all, it was the early 70s. The price of oil was at an all-time high, so the expense of sending car after car up and down the same road for a solid day once a month just to pick up a ghost was more trouble than it was worth.
Just to pick up a ghost.
So Lawson started developing a plan, one that he didn't go through the proper Foundation channels to approve. He reasoned that the reason Mary's ghost kept coming back was because she wanted something. Since always asked for a ride home, then it must mean she wanted to return back to her parents.
Okay.
So logic followed that if she had nothing or no one to go back to, then she'd stop appearing. On the 18th of June, 1973,
Dr.
Lawson
had
went
her
ahead
parents
with his plan without his superior's knowledge and ordered the execution of Mary Talish's parents, as well as the immediate demolition of their family home.
You
According
evil
to his
son of a
journals,
gun.
Lawson had hoped that his attempt at decommissioning 1337 would significantly cut the Foundation's
You're gonna
gas
make her
bills,
mad is
freeing
what
up
you're gonna
valuable
do.
funds, at which point
She's
he'd
gonna
surely
be so
promoted
pissed.
in recognition of his brilliance. But that wasn't what
No,
happened.
no.
Lawson was demoted from team leader to junior staff, and only kept on 1337 detail out of the belief that, without a family to return to, Lawson would become the new focal point of the haunting should Mary Talish ever return. Though Lawson's actions weren't at all above board, even by SCP Foundation standards, they did seem to have worked. The 19th of June came and went without a single Mary sighting.
It's very
and
subtle,
she wasn't
but
seen
important.
the next month either. A full year went by without any sign of the Mayflower Road apparition.
1 year.
Satisfied with this turn of events, the Foundation made the decision to officially reclassify SCP-1337 from safe to safe decommission. And the gas money that was budgeted for the Mayflower Road patrol was redirected to the SCP-682 Tank Acid Fund. But even though everything seemed to have been sorted out, Lawson wasn't entirely satisfied. And not just because of his demotion. Whether it was intuition or merely guilt-induced paranoia is unclear. But he suspected that Mary was still out there somewhere. At first he thought that she might show up on the anniversary of her parents' deaths. But then that date came and went, as did 8 more anniversaries after it. Finally, on the 19th of June, 1983, Lawson decided he had to see for himself. Fitted with recording equipment, he drove alone, in a non-Foundation standard car, down that lonely stretch of road, where so many before him had stopped
trying
to
to
pick
pick her up.
Blonde
I have a feeling Dr. Lawson is about to get
He had to prove to himself that she wouldn't show up, that he had really and truly gotten rid of her for good. It was about 5 o'clock in the evening when he reached Mayflower Road. At first, he didn't experience anything strange. He scanned the roadside, looking for the phantom hitchhiker walking along it. But there was nobody there. Dr. Lawson breathed a sigh of relief. He may have orchestrated the deaths of 2 innocent people, but at least it hadn't been for nothing. He turned on the recorder he brought with him and logged that nothing had happened. SCP-1337 had been permanently neutralized. As he approached the T intersection and prepared to turn onto Marsh Avenue, he looked up to adjust his rearview mirror.
Saw her in the rear view,
He found that he wasn't alone in the car.
She was in the car with him.
Seat behind him. Someone with blonde hair and a red sweater. His last transmission consisted only of, "Wait, who the hell are you?" before the recording abruptly stopped.
Who do you think it is? It's Mary,
found
sucker.
soon after by Foundation agents. Lawson was dead in the front seat, bruised and bloody, with his eyes and heart
the
ripped
ritualistic
out in a
murder.
ritualistic fashion, just the way Mary Talish had been found all the way back in 1952. It turns out that Mary hadn't been neutralized after all. She'd just been waiting for a chance to get revenge on the man who killed her. And Mary didn't stop with Dr. Lawson. No longer does she appear,
tasted it, baby. Now she's got to get it all.
waiting for someone to offer her a ride before disappearing without incident.
She just
now, should someone pass by without offering a ride, She will appear in their back
Boink.
seat before reenacting the method of her own death upon the driver.
Wow.
And her physical appearance has changed too.
Yeah, it
Whereas
looks like she
before
was
she
darker,
looked like the
right?
image of a pretty young woman before her tragedy.
Now she looks like
recordings
the
show
devil.
that she appears with the wounds of her death present,
Oh.
her eyes gouged out in their sockets, and a massive hole in her chest.
Ain't
where
nothing
her
like an
heart
ugly
should be.
ghost to be
The
even
same
scary than a
wounds
regular
she
ghost.
inflicts on her victims.
God.
The SCP Foundation has tried closing off and
Imagine,
eventually
socketless
destroying
eyes
the
is so
road,
creepy, man.
but that has only resulted in Mary manifesting at other locations
Really?
in and around Muncie. Foundation documents reveal that any back road in the city can potentially serve as host to a 1337 event, and all attempts to contain the apparition have failed.
Oh
The
no.
only way someone who has seen Mary can avoid her wrath is by stopping to pick her up, at which point she will dematerialize before reappearing on another road. Mobile task forces have been unsuccessful, as Mary only appears to those driving alone, and all agents who have been sent on solo missions to apprehend her have resulted in the death of the agent.
Dang!
SCP-1337 was reinstated, this time as Euclid Class. Currently, the Foundation's method of managing SCP-1337 is to dispatch a security team on the 19th of every month to monitor all the places where a potential sighting could take place.
Wow, that's a lot.
As soon as signs of a
personnel.
manifestation are identified, a remotely controlled vehicle containing a single D-Class is driven to the location.
Remote
Once Mary
control.
appears in the car.
D-Class,
The
poor
car is
thing.
piloted to the empty lot where her home used to stand, and the remains of the D-Class are then disposed
Thank
of.
goodness the
Like a lot of the stories
Foundation's
that get
cloning
passed
them, huh?
down as urban legends, the story of SCP-1337 has a lesson that can be taken away from it.
Yeah.
This SCP started off as an ordinary local haunting, no more deadly than Lydia, Suzanne, Resurrection Mary, or any of the
but you made
countless
it
other
bad.
local versions of the Vanishing Hitchhiker story.
You had
But
to-
thanks
you
to
had to-
one rogue Foundation doctor and his desire to rush what he thought would be an efficient solution, the spirit not only became harder to control,
You can make
but
'em
also
mad.
much more violent and bloodthirsty than anyone was prepared to deal with. So if there's anything we can learn here, it's that no matter if you're a student, an office worker, or a researcher with the SCP Foundation, think twice about cutting corners.
That's
it might
right.
save you a little bit of time and money in
That's
the
a
short
good
term,
lesson.
but in
It's
the
true.
long term, the results could be fatal. Now go check.
I liked it. I liked it. A little lesson at the end too. I love these little lessons. Honestly, guys, don't pick up hitchhikers. It's not a good idea. Like, I know there's a culture that was built around it at one point. It was like cool for people to do this or whatever, but it's very, very dangerous. If you do, please use all the discretion that you could possibly use in any situation. I love y'all. Y'all stay safe. Make sure to go check out SCP Explained, guys, as well as a couple other videos that I reacted to from him. Thanks so much for watching. As always, this is Zueljin signing off. We'll see you next time.